I decided to visit my daughter unexpectedly, but I saw my husband's car at her house. I quietly walked up to the window. What I saw inside destroyed everything. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. For 32 years, I thought I knew what happiness looked like. My name is Margaret. I'm 63 years old, and until 3 months ago, I believed my family was my greatest achievement. My husband, Robert, and I had built a comfortable life in our suburb of Cleveland. Nothing fancy, just honest, hardworking American values. We raised our daughter Jennifer together, watched her graduate college, helped her buy her first house just 15 minutes from ours. Sunday dinners at our place were sacred. Robert would grill steaks, Jennifer would bring wine, and I'd make my famous apple pie. What more could a woman want? But something had shifted in recent months, though I couldn't quite place my finger on it. Robert had become distant. He'd always been attentive, opening doors for me, asking about my day, holding my hand during our evening walks. Lately, though, he seemed distracted. His phone would buzz during dinner, and he'd glance at it with a strange expression before putting it face down on the table. Just work, he'd say, though he'd been retired for 2 years. He started going to the gym more often. At 65, suddenly concerned about his physique? He bought new cologne, expensive shirts, started whitening his teeth. Midlife crisis, my friend Barbara suggested over coffee. Tom bought a motorcycle at 60. Count your blessings. But it wasn't just Robert. Jennifer had changed too. My vibrant, talkative daughter had become evasive. Our daily phone calls dwindled to twice a week, then once. When I suggested lunch, she was always busy. "Big project at work, Mom," she'd say, her voice tight. Sunday dinners were canceled. First once, then twice. Then she stopped coming altogether. "I'm just stressed," she explained when I confronted her. "I need some space to figure things out." Space? From her own mother? Then Robert started having evening meetings. In retirement. 3, sometimes 4 times a week, he'd shower, put on that new cologne, and disappear until after 10. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for his car in the driveway. When I asked about these meetings, he'd grow defensive. "I'm on the community board now, Margaret. We're planning the summer festival." But I'd lived in this community for 30 years. There was no summer festival in January. The real unease started when I noticed the pattern. Every time Robert had an evening meeting, Jennifer wouldn't answer my calls. Coincidence? I tried to convince myself it was, but a mother's intuition is a powerful thing, and mine was screaming that something was terribly, horribly wrong. Last Tuesday, I decided to surprise Jennifer with her favorite lemon cake. She'd been so stressed lately. Maybe a spontaneous visit would cheer her up. I didn't call ahead. Why would I? I'm her mother. I baked all morning, wrapped the cake carefully, and drove the familiar 15 minutes to her little blue house on Maple Street. That's when I saw it. Robert's silver Chevrolet Tahoe, parked in Jennifer's driveway, at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. My heart stopped. My hands went numb on the steering wheel. There had to be an explanation. Maybe he was helping her fix something. Maybe her car broke down, and he was giving her a ride. But why wouldn't either of them mention it? Why the secrecy? I parked down the street, my hands shaking. Something inside me knew, absolutely knew, that walking up to that front door would change everything. But I had to see. I had to know. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as I crept across her lawn. My sensible shoes made no sound on the grass. The living room curtains were partially open, and I approached the window slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. What I saw through that window made my blood run cold. It made my knees buckle. It made 32 years of marriage and 38 years of motherhood crumble into dust. Robert and Jennifer were standing close. Too close. His hand was on her waist. She was laughing, looking up at him with an expression I'd seen before. On my own face decades ago, when I was young and in love. And then he leaned down, and she tilted her face up, and they kissed. Not a fatherly peck, not an accidental brush of lips, a deep, passionate, unmistakable kiss. My husband was kissing our daughter. I stumbled backward, bile rising in my throat. The lemon cake slipped from my hands and hit the ground with a muted thud. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening, but it was. I don't remember driving home. One moment I was standing on Jennifer's lawn, my entire world shattering, and the next I was sitting in my own driveway, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. How long had I been there? Minutes? Hours? The sun had shifted position in the sky. Inside our house, the house where I'd raised Jennifer, where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases and graduations, everything looked exactly the same. The family photos on the mantel smiled back at me mockingly. Jennifer's kindergarten artwork still framed on the wall. Our wedding photo, Robert and me so young and hopeful. All of it was a lie. How long had this been going on? The questions came like a flood. When did it start? How did it start? What kind of monster had I been sleeping next to all these years? What kind of daughter had I raised? I ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left, then collapsed on the cool tile floor, trembling. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Meeting running late. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. Those words that once brought me comfort now felt like acid. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone against the wall, to call him and demand answers. But something stopped me. Some instinct for self-preservation. If I confronted him now, emotional and broken, I'd lose. They'd deny it, gaslight me, make me question what I saw with my own eyes. I'd seen enough crime shows to know how this worked. No, I needed to be smart. I needed to be strategic. I pulled myself off the bathroom floor and splashed cold water on my face. The woman staring back at me in the mirror looked old, haggard, defeated. When had I become so weak? So easy to discard? Robert was 65, yes, but Jennifer was 38, a grown woman. This wasn't some innocent victim being preyed upon. This was betrayal from both sides. The scope of my losses hit me in waves. My marriage, gone. My daughter, gone. My family, gone. Everything I'd built, every sacrifice I'd made, every dream I'd had for our golden years together. All of it reduced to nothing by that kiss. I thought about my options. I could confront them. But what would that accomplish? Tears, excuses, maybe promises to stop? No. This wasn't a mistake or a one-time lapse in judgment. The way they'd looked at each other, the comfort in their body language. This had been going on for a while. This was deliberate. This was chosen. I could tell people. Call my sister in Phoenix. Tell Barbara. Post it on Facebook for all of Cleveland to see. But the humiliation. Could I bear it? Did you hear about Margaret? Her husband left her for their daughter. I could already hear the whispers, see the pitying looks, feel the social death. I could leave, pack a bag, file for divorce, start over somewhere new. But why should I be the one to leave? Why should I be the one to lose my home, my community, my life? They were the criminals here. They were the ones who'd destroyed everything. That's when the anger came. Real anger, cold and clarifying. It burned away the shock and the grief and left something harder in its place. I'd spent 32 years being a good wife. I'd cooked and cleaned and supported Robert through his career. I'd given up my own dreams to raise Jennifer, drove her to soccer practice and piano lessons, helped her with homework, paid for her college. I'd been a good mother, a good woman. And this was my reward? No. I refused to be the victim in this story. Robert came home around 11, whistling. Actually, whistling. He found me in the living room, sitting in the dark. "Margaret? Why are you sitting in the dark, honey? Honey." The endearment made my skin crawl, but I forced a smile. "Just tired. How was your meetin'?" "Oh, you know, long but productive." He bent to kiss my forehead, and I had to fight every instinct not to recoil. Those lips had been on our daughter's mouth just hours ago. "I'm going to grab a shower." I listened to the water running upstairs and opened my laptop. If I was going to fight, I needed weapons. I needed evidence. I needed a plan. First step, documentation. I created a new email account they couldn't trace. Then I started taking photos. Robert's phone records, which stupidly he'd never password protected, our bank statements, credit card bills. There were charges I'd never noticed before. Dinner at Giuseppe's, Jennifer's favorite restaurant, hotel rooms in downtown Cleveland, jewelry purchases. How had I missed this? Because I'd trusted them. Because I'd believed in the sanctity of family. What a fool I'd been. Over the next several days, I played the perfect wife. I smiled at Robert over breakfast, asked about his day, laughed at his jokes. Each performance made me sick, but I forced myself. I needed time. I needed information. I needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal before I struck, and I would strike. They'd made the fatal mistake of underestimating me. They saw a tired, aging housewife, someone to be discarded, someone who'd cry and break and eventually accept her fate. They didn't know that beneath 32 years of domestic tranquility lived a woman with a spine of steel. My plan began to take shape. I would gather evidence. I would secure my assets. I would find allies. And when the time was right, I would burn their world to the ground, legally, publicly, and completely. They wanted to destroy my life? Fine. But I'd take them down with me. Robert thought he was having secret meetings? Wait until he saw what I could do. Monday morning, I called Linda Morrison, the best divorce attorney in Cleveland. I'd seen her interviewed on the local news, watched her eviscerate unfaithful husbands in court. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was her. "Mrs. Henderson," her assistant's voice was professional and calm. "Ms. Morrison can see you Thursday at 2. May I ask what this concerns?" "Divorce," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "And it's complicated." Thursday couldn't come fast enough. I spent those days maintaining my performance, but I also started moving money. Small amounts at first, transferring funds from our joint account to my personal account that I'd opened 20 years ago and rarely used. Nothing Robert would notice immediately, but enough to ensure I wouldn't be left destitute. I'd earned that money too. I'd been a partner in our marriage, even if I hadn't worked outside the home in decades. I also started documenting everything in a journal. Dates, times, observations. Every evening meeting, every canceled Sunday dinner, every lie. The pattern was undeniable once I laid it out in black and white. On Tuesday evening, Robert announced another meeting. "Community board stuff," he said, already heading for the shower. I watched him dress carefully, apply that cologne, check his reflection twice. My stomach churned, but I kept my face neutral. "Will you be late?" I asked sweetly. "Probably. Don't wait up, sweetheart." 20 minutes after he left, I got in my car and drove to Jennifer's house. Sure enough, the Tahoe was there. I parked across the street this time, in a spot where I couldn't be seen, but had a clear view of her front door. I'd brought binoculars, a notebook, my phone. I felt ridiculous, like some character in a bad detective movie. But I needed absolute proof. I needed documentation that even they couldn't deny. At 9:45, the front door opened. Robert emerged first, adjusting his collar. Then Jennifer appeared, and they stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light behind them. She rose on her tiptoes. He cupped her face. They kissed goodbye like lovers. I took 17 photos. The resolution was decent even in the dim light. Undeniable. Damning. But I needed more. I needed something that would hold up legally, something that would prove this wasn't just an isolated incident, but an ongoing affair. So I waited until Robert's car disappeared. Then I knocked on Jennifer's door. She answered in a robe, her hair mussed, her face flushed. When she saw me, every drop of color drained from her cheeks. "Mom, what are you doing here? Can I come in, sweetheart?" I kept my voice light, even warm. "I was in the neighborhood and saw your lights on. Thought we could have some tea, maybe talk. We haven't had a real conversation in so long." I could see her mind racing, calculating, refuse, and she'd seem suspicious. Accept, and she'd have to maintain the lie face to face. She stepped aside. Of course, I was just getting ready for bed, but sure. Jennifer's house smelled like Robert's cologne. His reading glasses were on her coffee table. 2 wine glasses sat in the sink, one with lipstick, one without. Evidence everywhere, if you knew to look for it. She made tea with shaking hands while I sat at her kitchen table, the table Robert and I had bought her as a housewarming gift. The irony wasn't lost on me. "You seem tense, honey," I said. "Is everything okay?" "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired. Work has been crazy." "Yes, you mentioned that. What project are you working on?" She stared at her tea. "Just client presentations. Lots of deadlines." You know, your father's been busy too. All these community board meetings. Strange, though. I called the community center yesterday, and they said there was no summer festival planning committee." Her cup clattered against the saucer. Maybe he got the name wrong? Maybe. I sipped my tea, watching her squirm. "Jennifer, can I ask you something? And I need you to be honest with me." "Of course." "Are you seeing someone? Is that why you've been so distant?" "You can tell me, sweetheart. I'm your mother. I just want you to be happy." The question hung in the air between us. This was her chance, her opportunity to come clean, to show even a shred of remorse or decency. I watched her face, hoping desperately that maybe I'd misunderstood what I'd seen. Maybe there was some explanation. But Jennifer just smiled tightly and said, "No, Mom, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm just focused on my career right now." Lie. Direct, deliberate lie to my face. That's when something inside me broke permanently. Not shattered. That had already happened. This was different. This was crystallization. The last soft part of me hardening into diamond. "Well," I said, standing, "I should let you get to bed. Sorry for dropping by so late." "It's okay, Mom. Thanks for checking on me." As she walked me to the door, I turned back. "Jennifer, I love you. I need you to remember that. No matter what happens, I've always loved you." She looked confused. "I love you too, Mom." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just feeling sentimental, I guess." I left her standing in the doorway, that confused expression on her face. She had no idea what was coming. Neither of them did. Thursday afternoon, I sat across from Linda Morrison in her sleek downtown office. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and sharper suit. "Tell me everything," she said, and I did. I showed her the photos, the bank statements, the hotel charges, the timeline, everything. When I finished, Linda leaned back in her chair and studied me. "Mrs. Henderson, I've handled a lot of divorce cases, but this is particularly egregious. You understand that this will be public? That people will know?" "I understand." "And you're sure? Because once we file, there's no going back." I thought about Robert's lies, Jennifer's lies, the kiss, the betrayal. 32 years reduced to nothing. "I'm sure." Linda smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted prey. "Good. Then let's destroy them." Linda moved fast. Within 2 days, we'd filed for divorce citing adultery. Ohio law required concrete proof, and we had it in spades. The photos, the financial records, the timeline, everything pointed to a sustained, deliberate affair. More importantly, Linda had connections with a private investigator named Marcus, a retired cop with a specialty in infidelity cases. "I want to be thorough," Linda explained. "Your husband will deny it. They always do. But if we have video, audio, documented patterns of behavior, he'll have no choice but to settle on your terms." Marcus worked for 3 weeks. He followed Robert to Jennifer's house 17 times. He documented them at restaurants, holding hands across tables. He got video of them checking into the Riverside Hotel downtown, twice. He even managed to capture audio of them in Jennifer's driveway, saying things no father should ever say to his daughter. "This is airtight," Linda said, spreading the evidence across her conference table. "He can't wiggle out of this. Neither can she." The divorce papers were served on a Saturday morning. Robert had just finished his coffee when the doorbell rang. I watched from the kitchen as he signed for the envelope, confused. Then I watched his face as he opened it and began reading. He went pale, then red, then pale again. "Margaret?" His voice was strangled. "What is this?" I walked into the living room, calm as still water. "It's a divorce petition, Robert. I would think that's obvious." "Divorce? What are you talking about? Why would you—" He scanned the pages, and I saw the exact moment he reached the adultery clause. His hands started shaking. "This is insane! Where did you get these ridiculous accusations?" "Accusations?" I kept my voice level. "I have photos, Robert, videos, financial records, 3 weeks of surveillance. Should I continue?" His face crumbled. "Margaret, listen to me. This is a misunderstanding. Whatever you think you saw. I saw you kissing our daughter in her house multiple times. I have 17 separate occasions documented. Would you like to see the evidence?" The color drained from his face completely. "How long have you known? Does it matter?" He reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again." "Please, let me explain. It's not what you think. It happened. We didn't mean for it to happen. We tried to stop, but—" "How long?" I demanded. He looked at the floor. 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of lies and betrayal, while I cooked his meals and washed his clothes and believed we were happy. I felt my carefully maintained composure crack slightly, but I held firm. "Get out," I said quietly. "This is my house too. Get out." The force in my voice surprised even me. "You have until Monday to remove your personal belongings. My lawyer will be in touch about asset division. If you're still here when I get back from my walk, I'm calling the police." I grabbed my jacket and left him standing there, the divorce papers clutched in his shaking hands. I walked for over an hour, barely seeing where I was going. When I finally returned home, Robert's car was gone. Half his closet was empty. He'd left his wedding ring on the bathroom counter. My phone had 37 missed calls, 23 from Robert, 14 from Jennifer. I deleted every voicemail without listening. Then the texts started coming. Jennifer: Mom, please call me. Dad told me what happened. This is all a huge misunderstanding. Robert: we need to talk. Please, I'll explain everything. Jennifer: Mom, you're overreacting. You don't understand the situation. Robert: don't do this. Think about our family. Think about what this will do to Jennifer. That one almost made me laugh. Think about Jennifer? That's all I'd been doing for 38 years. On Sunday afternoon, they showed up together. I watched through the window as Robert's Tahoe pulled into the driveway, both of them emerging. They walked to my door side by side, united against me. I didn't answer the doorbell. Margaret, we know you're in there, Robert shouted through the door. We just want to talk. Jennifer's voice, softer. Mom, please, let us explain. You're hurt, and you have every right to be, but you're not seeing the whole picture. Not seeing the whole picture? What picture could possibly justify what they'd done? Robert's tone shifted, becoming harder. Margaret, if you go through with this divorce, everything will come out. Everyone will know. Barbara, your sister, the whole neighborhood. Is that really what you want? To humiliate yourself publicly? There it was, the threat. The implication that I should be ashamed, that I should hide, that I should protect them from the consequences of their own actions. I opened the door. They both looked relieved until they saw my face. Let me make something very clear, I said, my voice cold. I am not the one who should be humiliated. You are. You're a 65-year-old man who seduced his own daughter. And you, I turned to Jennifer, you're a grown woman who chose to have an affair with your own father. So yes, everyone will know. And yes, they'll talk. But they'll be talking about you, not me. It's not like that, Jennifer said desperately. We didn't plan this. It just evolved. We connected on a deeper level. We understand each other in ways. Stop. I held up my hand. I don't want to hear your justifications. I don't want to hear how you fell in love or how it was destiny or whatever sick story you've told yourselves. I want you both to leave my property. Now, if you don't drop this, you'll have nothing, Robert said, his voice taking on an edge. I'll fight you for everything. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. You haven't worked in 30 years, Margaret. What are you going to do without me? I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like an expression I'd forgotten how to make. You should talk to your lawyer, Robert. In Ohio, adultery affects asset division significantly. But please, do fight me. I'd love to see you explain your relationship with Jennifer in open court. His face went purple. Jennifer grabbed his arm. Dad, let's go. This isn't working. They left, and I closed the door behind them, my heart racing. I'd done it. I'd stood my ground. I'd called their bluff, but I was shaking. My legs felt weak. I collapsed onto the couch and let myself cry for the first time since that Tuesday afternoon when my world had shattered. Linda called an hour later. Robert's attorney contacted me. He wants to negotiate. Already? Apparently you made quite an impression. He's scared, Margaret. They both are. Which means we have the upper hand. For the next several days, I existed in a strange limbo. I took time off from my volunteer work at the library. I didn't answer calls from friends. I ordered groceries online and had them delivered. I needed time to process, to grieve, to simply breathe without performing strength for anyone. Barbara found out anyway. She showed up on my doorstep with wine and chocolate and a fierce hug. I heard through Linda's assistant's cousin, she said. I'm so sorry, Margaret. What can I do? Just having her there helped. Having someone who knew, who didn't judge, who just listened while I talked and cried and raged. She stayed for 3 days, sleeping in the guest room, making sure I ate, forcing me to take walks. "You're stronger than you know," she said before she left. "And you're going to get through this." I wanted to believe her. Some days I almost did. 2 weeks after serving the divorce papers, a letter arrived. Not from Robert's lawyer, from Robert himself. Handwritten on the expensive stationery I'd bought him last Christmas. "My dearest Margaret," it began. I almost threw it away right then, but morbid curiosity won. The letter was 6 pages long. 6 pages of excuses, justifications, and emotional manipulation. He talked about his midlife crisis, about feeling invisible and old. He claimed Jennifer had been struggling with depression, that they'd bonded over shared loneliness. He said it started innocently. Coffee meetings to talk, then dinners, then one thing led to another. He swore he still loved me, that I was the foundation of his life, that he couldn't imagine growing old without me. "If you can find it in your heart to forgive us," he wrote, "we can put this behind us. Jennifer has agreed to move to Seattle for a job opportunity. We'll end things between us. You and I can go to counseling, rebuild our marriage. We can have the life we always dreamed of." I read it twice, looking for sincerity. What I found was desperation. He was offering me a deal. Sweep this under the rug, pretend it never happened, and he'd give up Jennifer. As if that made it better. As if knowing my husband would spend the rest of his life secretly pining for our daughter was supposed to be comforting. I burned the letter in the fireplace and didn't respond. 3 days later, Jennifer called from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom." Her voice was small, young, the voice of the little girl who used to crawl into my lap after nightmares. "Please talk to me. Please." I said nothing. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I need you to understand. I never meant to hurt you. Neither of us did. It just happened, Mom. Sometimes people connect in unexpected ways. You can't control love." Love. She called it love. "You're my daughter," I said finally. "I gave birth to you. I raised you. I taught you right from wrong. And you chose to do this anyway. I'm an adult, Mom. I'm allowed to make my own choices about who I—" "He's your father." My voice was ice. "Not biologically," she said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not biologically, as if that mattered. Robert had raised her from age 4 when I'd married him. He'd been the only father she'd ever known. He'd taught her to ride a bike, walked her down the aisle at her wedding to Mark, held her when Mark left her 3 years later. He'd been her father in every way that mattered. And she was using technicalities to justify this? "You're not even sorry," I said, realization dawning. "You're just sorry you got caught." Silence on the other end. "Don't contact me again, Jennifer. I have nothing to say to you." I hung up. She didn't call back. But the attempts to sway me didn't stop. I received a visit from Pastor Michael from the church I'd attended for 20 years. Robert must have called him. "Margaret," he said gently, sitting in my living room with his Bible on his lap. "Robert came to see me. He's devastated. He knows he's made a terrible mistake, and he's seeking redemption. As Christians, we're called to forgive. Marriage is sacred, a covenant before God. Perhaps with prayer and counseling—" "Pastor Michael," I interrupted, "did Robert tell you the full story? Did he tell you who he's been having an affair with?" His expression faltered. He said there had been an infidelity. He didn't specify. "With our daughter. He's been sleeping with Jennifer." The pastor's face went white. His Bible slipped from his fingers. That can't be." It's true, I have evidence. So please, tell me about the sanctity of marriage. Tell me about forgiveness. Tell me how God wants me to accept this." He left shortly after, shaken and speechless. I felt no satisfaction, just emptiness. The social pressure was constant. Robert's brother called, trying to mediate. Robert's golfing buddies' wives reached out, gently suggesting I was overreacting. A marriage counselor Jennifer had apparently hired called to offer free sessions. Everyone, it seemed, wanted me to be reasonable, to be calm, to forgive. No one seemed to care that I'd been betrayed in the most fundamental way possible, but I also found unexpected allies. Linda Morrison became more than my lawyer. She became a friend. She'd been through her own brutal divorce 5 years prior and understood the isolation, the gaslighting, the pressure to be the bigger person. "You don't owe them forgiveness," she said over coffee in her office. "You don't owe them anything. This is about what you need to survive and rebuild." Barbara organized a small support group, 3 other women who'd been through devastating divorces. We met weekly at her house. They shared their stories, and I shared mine. There was no judgment, no pressure to heal faster or let it go. Just understanding. "My ex-husband cheated with my sister," one woman named Patricia said. "I haven't spoken to either of them in 10 years. People told me I was bitter, that I should forgive for my own peace. But you know what? I have peace. I have peace because I don't have toxic people in my life anymore." Her words resonated deeply. I also found strength in routine. I returned to my volunteer work at the library. I started attending a yoga class. I planted a garden in my backyard, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Each day, I woke up and chose to keep living. Some days that choice was harder than others. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Robert's initial bravado had crumbled under the weight of evidence. His lawyer advised him to settle rather than face a trial. Linda negotiated fiercely on my behalf. I would keep the house. I would get 60% of the retirement accounts and savings. I would receive spousal support. Robert would pay my legal fees. It wasn't about the money. It was about not letting him win. Through it all, I maintained my composure. When I saw Robert at mandatory mediation sessions, I was polite but distant. When his lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, I remained calm and factual. When they attempted to negotiate for less spousal support, I simply had Linda present the evidence again. I'd learned something important. I didn't need to rage or scream or break down to be powerful. My power was in my refusal to be moved. My power was in my clarity. Robert and Jennifer thought they could pressure me, tempt me with forgiveness, make me doubt myself. They were wrong. I'd spent 2 months mourning what I'd lost. Now I was focused on what I'd gain. Freedom. The knock on my door came on a Thursday evening. I'd just finished dinner, takeout Thai, eaten alone at my kitchen table while reading a mystery novel. Single life was strange, but not entirely unpleasant. Quiet, simple, mine. Through the peephole, I saw them both. Robert in a suit, looking haggard. Jennifer in a modest dress, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. They looked defeated, humbled. Part of me wanted to ignore them, but curiosity won. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. "Margaret," Robert began, his voice hoarse. "Please, we need to talk, just 5 minutes." "We have nothing to discuss. Everything goes through our lawyers." "Please, Mom." Jennifer's eyes were red-rimmed. "We're not here to fight. We're here to apologize. Really apologize. We've been going to therapy, working on ourselves. We understand now how much we hurt you. We just want a chance to explain, to make amends." They looked sincere. They sounded sincere. And God help me. Some small part of me, the part that had loved them both for so many years, wanted to believe them. Against my better judgment, I unhooked the chain and let them in. Robert stood awkwardly in the living room he'd shared with me for 3 decades. Jennifer perched on the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap like a penitent child. "We've ended things," Robert said immediately. "Completely. Jennifer's accepted a job in Portland. She's moving next month. What happened between us was wrong. We see that now. We got caught up in something unhealthy and destructive, and we've hurt you terribly." "We hurt ourselves too," Jennifer added. "This has destroyed our family. I've lost my mother. Dad's lost his wife. We've lost everything that matters. And for what? A relationship that was doomed from the start?" I sat in the armchair across from them, silent. Robert continued, "I'm not asking you to take me back. I know I've broken your trust in ways that can't be repaired, but I am asking you to consider softening the divorce terms. The settlement you're demanding, it's going to bankrupt me, Margaret. The house, the retirement accounts, the spousal support. I'll have nothing left." There it was, the real reason for this visit. "And," I said coolly, "and we're family," Jennifer said, leaning forward. "Despite everything, we're still family. Mom, you raised me to be compassionate, to be understanding, to forgive. Yes, we made a terrible mistake. But does that mean you should destroy Dad financially? Does it mean you should cut me out of your life forever?" Robert nodded earnestly. "We're both willing to go to family therapy with you. We'll do whatever it takes to rebuild trust. But this scorched earth approach, it's not like you, Margaret. You're kind. You're generous. This vindictiveness, don't." My voice was sharp. "Don't you dare tell me who I am." Jennifer flinched. Robert held up his hands. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong. I just meant, we're asking for mercy. We're asking you to remember the good years, the love we shared. We're asking you to be the bigger person, the bigger person." How many times had I heard that phrase in the past months? "Let me ask you something," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "If I hadn't caught you, would you have stopped?" They exchanged glances. "Be honest," I pressed. "If I hadn't seen you kissing that day, if I hadn't hired an investigator, if I'd just stayed blissfully ignorant, would this affair still be going on?" More silence. That's what I thought. I stood. "You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. And now you want me to make those consequences go away because it's inconvenient for you." "That's not fair," Jennifer protested. "We are sorry. We've been going to therapy. We've been working on understanding why this happened." "Why it happened?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "I'll tell you why it happened. It happened because you're both selfish. Because you put your own desires above everything else, above family, above decency, above me. And now you're here, in my home, pretending to be remorseful, but really, you just want me to give Robert back his money." Robert's expression hardened. "I worked for 35 years for that money. I earned it. And I kept your home and raised your daughter and supported your career for 32 years. I earned it too." "You're being vindictive," he said, his mask slipping. "You're punishing us because you're hurt. And I understand that. But this is excessive." Jennifer stood up, her earlier meekness evaporating. "Mom, let's be real. You're 63 years old. What are you going to do with all that money? You don't even spend that much. Meanwhile, Dad needs it for retirement. I need help getting established in Portland. You're being selfish." I stared at her, genuinely amazed. "I'm being selfish?" "Yes," she said, more confident now. "You're holding on to this anger, and it's making you cruel. We made a mistake, but we're trying to move forward. Why can't you?" "Because my daughter betrayed me," I said quietly. "Because the man I trusted with my life betrayed me. Because you're standing in my living room, trying to manipulate me into letting you off the hook. And you don't even see how twisted this is." Robert stood, his face flushing. "We came here to reconcile. We came here in good faith. But clearly, you're determined to play the victim." "Get out," I said. "Margaret, get out of my house." Jennifer's face twisted with anger. "Fine, but you need to know you're going to lose. Dad's lawyer is preparing a new motion. We have a therapist who'll testify that this affair was a result of complicated grief and emotional confusion. We're going to fight the settlement, and we're going to win. And you need to know," Robert added, stepping closer, "that once this divorce is final, you'll have no one, no family, no daughter, just your precious money and your self-righteousness. Is that really what you want? To die alone?" His words were meant to wound, and they did. But I didn't let it show. "I'd rather die alone than live with liars," I said. "Now get out before I call the police." They left, slamming the door behind them. I heard their angry voices in the driveway, then Robert's car roaring to life and peeling out onto the street. I locked the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. My hands were shaking. The fear rose up. What if they did fight? What if they found a way to win? What if I ended up with nothing? But beneath the fear was something stronger. Resolve. They'd shown their true colors tonight, dropped the masks completely, and instead of weakening me, it had clarified everything. They weren't sorry, they were desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. I called Linda and left a voicemail. "They came to my house tonight, tried to manipulate me into backing down. Record the threats they made. We'll need them for court." Then I poured myself a glass of wine, sat in my quiet living room, and let the resolve settle into my bones. They wanted a fight? They'd get one. And this time, I wouldn't be caught off guard. This time I'd be ready. The court date arrived on a cold morning in late March. 6 months had passed since I'd seen Robert and Jennifer kissing through that window. Now it would all end here, in Judge Patricia Huang's courtroom. Linda had warned me that Robert's lawyer was bringing in Dr. Stephen Chen, a therapist who'd paint Robert as a confused, vulnerable man caught up in an unhealthy dynamic while trying to help his struggling daughter. The courtroom was small, wood paneling, fluorescent lights, tired bureaucracy. Robert sat at the defendant's table, refusing to meet my eyes. Jennifer sat in the gallery behind him, pale but composed. Linda presented our evidence methodically. The photos, the credit card statements, the surveillance videos. Each piece was damning. Then Dr. Chen testified, explaining that the affair was a symptom of codependency and emotional confusion, not calculated betrayal. It was a good performance. But Linda's cross-examination destroyed him. She pointed out the elaborate deception, the lies, the hotel rooms purchased with cash, the jewelry, the restaurants across town. Doesn't that sound less like confusion and more like premeditation, Doctor? Chen had no good answer. When I took the stand, I kept my voice steady and my facts clear. Robert's lawyer tried to suggest our marriage had been failing, that I was vindictive. I didn't budge. "He raised her from age 4, I said firmly. "He was her father in every meaningful way, and he betrayed that relationship." Judge Huang took 15 minutes to deliberate. When she returned, her expression was grim. "Mr. Henderson, you engaged in a sexual relationship with your stepdaughter while married to Mrs. Henderson. Your actions demonstrate not confusion, but calculation." The gavel came down. I'd won. 65% of assets, $3,000 monthly spousal support for 10 years, all legal fees paid. Robert stood shakily. Jennifer sobbed openly, but I felt only hollow relief. As I left the courtroom, Jennifer reached for me. I kept walking. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. The divorce was finalized on April 15th. Robert had 30 days to remove his belongings. When I returned from Barbara's house that evening, The house felt lighter, half empty, but clean. A blank slate. Robert moved into a small apartment, struggling with the spousal support payments. He'd sold his Tahoe, was working part-time at a hardware store. His retirement dreams had evaporated. Jennifer moved to Portland, but the scandal followed her. Word spread through our community like wildfire. Her friends, one by one, distanced themselves. Some blocked her on social media. Others simply stopped responding. "There are some lines you don't cross," Sarah Mitchell told me at the grocery store. She crossed all of them. Robert tried to attend church. Some parishioners confronted him in the parking lot, told him he wasn't welcome. In August, Robert filed for bankruptcy, asking the court to reduce spousal support. Linda objected immediately. Judge Huang denied his motion. "Mr. Henderson, you created this situation. The court will not reward your poor financial planning." Jennifer returned to Ohio after failing to find work in Portland. The affair had followed her there, too. By December, I heard Robert was living in his car. The apartment had become unaffordable. Jennifer offered to let him stay with her, but he refused. Robert's hardware store fired him when the owner found out about the affair. "Can't have someone like that representing our family-friendly business." Jennifer couldn't keep jobs. Someone always found out, made a scene. She tried changing cities, even tried legally changing her name. The judge denied her request. They'd become cautionary tales. "Don't end up like Robert Henderson," people whispered. He'd made his choices. Now he was living with the consequences. As for me, I was thriving. Spring came early the following year. My garden, which I'd started planting after the divorce, exploded into bloom. Roses, peonies, lilacs. I spent hours out there, hands in the soil, sun on my face. For the first time in decades, I wasn't taking care of anyone but myself, and it felt revolutionary. Barbara convinced me to join a book club. 8 women, all in their 60s and 70s, meeting monthly to discuss literature and drink wine. They didn't treat me with pity. They treated me like an equal, a friend. "You're glowing," Diane, a retired teacher, said to me one evening. "Divorce suits you." She was right. I'd lost weight without trying. I slept through the night for the first time in years. I'd always thought marital stress was normal. Now I realized I'd been carrying tension I didn't even recognize. I started traveling. Charleston, Santa Fe, Maine. Places I'd always wanted to visit, but Robert had never been interested in. I went alone, and I loved it. The freedom to wake up when I wanted, eat what I wanted, see what I wanted. I took a watercolor class and discovered I had a knack for it. I hung my paintings throughout the house, replacing the old family photos. New memories, new life. The spousal support checks came every month, regular as clockwork. The money went into investments, savings, my travel fund. I was building security that could never be taken away. In June, Barbara and I took a cruise to Alaska. One night, standing on the deck under the northern lights, she squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you. You could have let this destroy you. Instead, you built something new." Meanwhile, Robert's situation continued to deteriorate. He'd moved into a boarding house. He'd developed health problems, diabetes, hypertension, but couldn't afford regular medical care. His friends had mostly abandoned him. The man who'd once been respected in our community was now a cautionary tale. Jennifer's life had followed a similar trajectory. The waitressing job in Columbus hadn't lasted. She'd been recognized by a customer who made a scene. She'd tried to rebuild in Cincinnati, then Indianapolis, then Kentucky. But the internet was forever. A Google search of her name brought up forums and articles about the affair. She'd written to me twice more. I hadn't responded. I read the letters, felt a complex swirl of emotions, and then put them away. I wasn't ready to forgive. Maybe I never would be. By September, 2 years after the divorce, I enrolled in community college. I'd always wanted to finish my degree. Now, at 65, I was taking literature classes alongside students young enough to be my grandchildren. I started dating too. Nothing serious. Dinner with a retired engineer named Thomas, coffee with a widower from my book club. I wasn't looking for another marriage, but companionship was nice. "You're different from most women my age," Thomas told me over Italian food. "You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're already complete." "I learned the hard way," I said. "I spent 32 years thinking I needed a husband to define me. Turns out I was wrong." My finances were solid. The settlement meant I'd be comfortable for the rest of my life. I donated to causes I cared about: women's shelters, literacy programs, domestic violence prevention. Christmas came. I spent it with Barbara and her family, surrounded by warmth and laughter and love. No tension, just genuine joy. On Christmas night, alone in my house, I lit a fire and sat with a glass of wine, looking at my watercolor paintings on the wall. 2 years ago, I'd thought my life was over. I'd been wrong. I'd lost everything that was fake. And in the ashes, I'd built something real, something mine, something nobody could take away. Robert and Jennifer had tried to break me. Instead, they'd freed me. And that was the sweetest victory of all. Looking back now, 3 years later, I understand something important. Betrayal can either destroy you or transform you. The choice is yours. I chose transformation. I chose to build a life defined by my own terms, not by the people who hurt me. I learned that forgiveness isn't always necessary for healing, that walking away is sometimes the strongest thing you can do. To anyone listening to my story, if someone betrays you, don't diminish your pain to make them comfortable. Don't sacrifice your dignity for false peace. Stand your ground, fight for what you deserve, and never, ever let anyone convince you that you're wrong for demanding basic decency. What would you have done in my place? How would you have responded? Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find their own strength.